Good day folks, Sean here from Air Photography. So recently DJI has launched the brand new Flip, and not too long ago they launched the DJI Neo. And you might be wondering, if you're going to be buying a drone this time of year, whether it's safe to fly it in winter and cold conditions. And the simple answer is yes, you can. All of these drones have a minimum temperature rating. DJI has that listed on their websites. For both the Flip and the Neo, the minimum temperature rating is negative 10 degrees Celsius, which is 14 degrees Fahrenheit. So you can indeed fly these in cold temperatures. Now, with that said, flying these drones on a cold day in sub-zero degree weather, there are some extra precautions that you need to take. It's not like flying it on a warm summer day. So in this video, we're going to go over some tips to make sure you have a safe and successful flight in the winter. So the first thing I want to talk about is precipitation. You know, some days like today, there's no snow at all, but there's going to be other days where it's not too bad, it's not too windy, and you want to go out and fly, but there could be a light snow, and you're wondering if it's safe to fly your drone. Now, my rule of thumb for flying when it's snowing out is if it's a really cold day, the snow is light and dry, then I usually will fly it. There's no issue there. If it's a milder day and the snow is heavy and wet, then usually I won't fly it, because when the snow is wet and heavy, it will accumulate on your drone, and when you get back, you'll find it saturated, which of course electronics and water don't mix too well. So usually that's what I do. And it's kind of like when you're driving in the winter, you know, if it's a cold day and you've got a light snow, the snow just kind of blows past your windshield, it doesn't stick. But if the snow is really heavy and wet, it will saturate your car. So it's the same for drones. That's my opinion anyways. Now, the second tip is to do with ice buildup on the props. That's something that can be a problem in the winter, and it doesn't even have to have snow on the ground. You could just be flying the drone in sub-zero degree weather, or even if the temperature is floating right around zero. There's a lot of moisture in the air, you can get ice built up on the props. So it's very important while flying in the winter or in cold temperatures, make sure you bring the drone back frequently and check the props for ice. Ice buildup on the props can cause problems. First of all, it can just cause problems for your video. It can cause the drone to vibrate, so you could get some jello in your video. But it can also cause damage to the props. You know, they're spinning at a really high RPM, and when they're unstable, they could break or shatter. And of course, that could lead to your drone crashing. The third tip is to perhaps invest in a landing pad. Now, with something like the Flip here or the Neo, these are designed to take off from the palm of your hand, so it's not too important. But if you're going to be flying something like the Mini 4 Pro or the Air 3, obviously you don't want to put the drone down in the snow. And if you're not comfortable doing a hand launch or a hand catch, then landing pad is a fairly cheap investment, and it can help protect your drone and allow you to take off from snowy surfaces, or even if it's just wet and slushy. Now, the fourth tip is probably just as important as checking for ice on your propellers, and that is keeping your batteries warm. These batteries, in order to function correctly, need to be at a warm temperature. If they get frozen or they're really cold, they're going to lose power very quickly. And keeping them warm is very important. And you can do so in a couple different ways. First of all, you can just keep the drone batteries inside your jacket. If you have an inside pocket, you can store them in there. However, if you're going to be hiking outdoors and you're going to be outdoors for quite a bit of time, you can purchase these electronic hand warmers. They're not really designed for this. They're designed to keep your hands warm. You put these in your pocket, but they work great for keeping the inside of your camera bag, keeping your batteries a little warmer. Just put them on a low setting, put them inside your camera bag, and that will help keep them at a nice temperature. Batteries, when they get cold, just lose their power very quickly, and that can lead to a dangerous situation. That goes on to my next 2 points, and the first is keeping your flight short. Perhaps on a nice summer day, you might have the drone up in the air for almost half an hour, depending on what drone you're flying. But when you're flying in the winter, it's good to keep your flight short. Bring it back, that way you can inspect the drone, make sure there's no ice built up on the propellers. You can also check your lens at the same time, make sure there's not moisture drops built up on the lens, because that again will ruin your footage. So myself, when I'm out flying on a cold day like today, I always keep my flight short, capture what I want, come back, and then put the drone back up again. Now, another thing I do in the winter when it's extremely cold out is I don't fly the battery below 45%. In the summertime, on a nice day, I'll take my batteries down to 15%, sometimes 10%. But on a cold day, I usually like to land the drone and not fly it again after 45%, because sometimes on a really cold day, those batteries can drop power very quickly once you get below 50%. I've experienced that myself, and I've had actually other people comment on other videos I've made about that topic in the past, saying that they've experienced that as well. You could drop really quickly, and of course you don't want to be out, a kilometer away to find out your battery just doesn't have enough power to get back to you. So definitely keep your flight short. And that goes into the next point, which is maybe perhaps not fly as far as you normally do. Stay local to where you are. Of course, you got to observe the visual line of sight rules anyways, But I usually don't send them out as far as I normally would. Again, if there's a problem, perhaps with ice or with the battery losing power, I want it close by so I can go and retrieve it if need be. And the last tip is to perhaps not fly as fast and aggressively as you normally would. Although these drones are designed to fly in cold weather, inside the gimbal housing there's something called a dampener. It's basically rubber that helps absorb vibrations. On extremely cold days, that rubber can get a little stiff and it can cause some vibrations and jello in your video. But usually by flying slower and not as aggressively, it's not putting so much stress on that rubber, those rubber dampeners, and it can make the footage look a little bit better. Now, that's not always a problem, but just something to keep in mind. Now, just as a few bonus tips here, if you are going to be flying a lot in the winter, you might want to invest in a good pair of photography gloves. Photography gloves are a little bit different than a normal glove. The index finger and the thumb usually pull back, so that gives you good dexterity on the sticks. They're usually touch sensitive, so you can touch the screen, change your settings, and it can just make flying a little bit more comfortable on a cold day like today. Another tip is to fly from inside your car. These drones have the 04 transmission system, most modern drones from DJI anyways, and the signal is really good, so flying from the comfort of inside your car on a cold day is going to make your flight a little more enjoyable. You can still capture the footage you want to capture, and you're not going to experience any signal loss being in the car. Now, just keep in mind, you still have to follow the visual line of sight rules, so make sure you're flying out in front of you so you can see the drone through the windshield. So yeah, folks, those are just some quick tips for flying the DJI Flip or perhaps the DJI Neo on a cold day in the winter. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and found it had value. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.